talking about this for years because they're like, sooner or later, they're going to come here and try to get our water. So, you know, they're getting ready for.
Well, as we're giving the Great Lakes water, we're giving that to the Chinese, so we have to go get it from somewhere else, which makes total sense. And anyway, let's move on to France, which we had a nice little conversation earlier. INFOWARS came out with an article this morning. Meet the new boss. French president is another Bilderberg stooge. Now, you differ on that a little bit. You came out with an article, Change Europe Can Believe In. Give us your pitch on Holland, or Hollande, however, Holland, and why you think he's a breath of fresh air. And you mentioned that the youth were out there celebrating, and this could be a turning point for France. Why do you think that?
Look, Rob, yesterday at the Bastille, there were like 1 million people in the streets. Most of them, I would say 80, 90% of them, they were young. It was the first time since the beginning of the financial crisis, in 4 years or over 4 years, that people start thinking, look, maybe there is an alternative to this austerity mantra by the European Central Bank, the German Minister of Finance, the Bundesbank, the Germans especially, and what used to be until yesterday, the Merkozy couple, Nicolas Sarkozy in France, Angela Merkel, the Chancellor of Germany, which is austerity is the cure for Europe. No, it's not. Austerity is killing not only European industry, European businesses, and European population as well, especially the young population. They will never be able to find a job, even fresh out of college with a very good education. It's impossible. There's the economy. There's no growth at all. If governments keep adhering to this ultra strict fiscal pact, as they call it in Germany, there will be no economic activity whatsoever in Europe in 4 or 5 years. And countries will be going down the drain. Their only escape route would be to escape the euro. But still, nobody knows, nobody, not even any collection of Nobel Prize winners in economics know what could really happen if, for instance, Greece or some of the other Club Med countries left the euro. It'll be very good for them in terms of exports, in terms of tourism, in terms of revitalizing their industries. The problem is they will still have a debt, and the debt will be denominated in euros. And how will they pay for this debt? Nobody knows. But still, the young generation, with the election of Hollande, and of course, Hollande is no messiah. He is a member of the elite as well. He studied at the ENA, which is the top administration school in France, is one of the best in the world. He was an economics professor at Sciences Po in Paris, which is one of the best political science faculties in the world as well. So he is a member of the elite, and he rose through the ranks of the Socialist Party, which nowadays it's more or less neoliberal, not as hardcore as Merkozy, but it's with a tinge of social democracy, meaning we need more social justice in Europe. We don't want to replicate the American model, which for most Europeans is too wild and it's pitiless. In Europe, unlike the US, in Europe, there is a social safety net. The welfare state still works in most of these countries. If you fall ill in France, you go without paying a cent to one of the best hospitals and you get treatment. Imagine this happening in the United States. Out of the question, unless you pay a fortune. So they want to keep especially what the working classes in Europe acquired in terms of rights for these past 30 or 40 years. They want to keep their standards of living, and at the same time, they need to grow. So who's going to pull that off when most of these countries are in deep debt? And also the case of France, right? So Hollande is campaign promises. We don't know if this is going to happen. He wants a 75% tax on the wealthy, which is not going to happen because there's going to be a barricade of the la grande bourgeoisie, the hyper bourgeois in France, or they're going to park their money forever out of the country. He wants more teachers. He wants to enroll at least 60,000 to 70,000 new teachers, boost to education. And he wants to introduce a tax on financial transactions. This explains why the City of London, Wall Street, The Economist, for instance, they've been on an active campaign against Hollande for months, saying that if he's elected, it's going to be a disaster to Europe. No, normal people, average people, the average worker in France, they say, no, maybe now we have a chance to keep what we have and start growing a little bit instead of being stuck into austerity. Of course, it's too early to tell, but that's the meaning of that explosion of joy all over France today. That's it. So I particularly don't expect that this is going to happen because it's an uphill struggle. Merkel is going to be ultra hardcore with Hollande. They say, look, I'm not going to renegotiate the austerity pact. It's going to be austerity for everybody. So what's going to be Hollande's response? Nobody knows.
Well, what's interesting is when you look at what happened in Iceland, they told the banks to go shove it, essentially, and now their economy, after 2 years, is making a real recovery based on the people getting up and pulling themselves up by the bootstraps. But I don't think you're going to see that in France. I think they're going to say, no, this is our debt. Even though the bankers made it, we have this giant bureaucracy, which we were talking about earlier, especially within the European Union, on top of the other bureaucracies those are the ones that are taking the money from the people that could go to these programs, because there is money to provide for people in these instances, because it's not a lot of money and compared to what it costs to go to war and blow up a bunch of countries and then rebuild them.
Absolutely. And Rob, the money is there, but the problem is the money is with the banks and with the 0.1% of the European elite, which is all of them are in the financial market as well. The problem is the money is not trickling down to productive investment. So even some people inside the European Central Bank and even the former Goldman Sachs bureaucrats who are running the whole machinery now in Europe, including in Italy, they are saying, okay, we need an austerity pact, but we also need a growth pact. So this is what Hollande is going to do. He will try to renegotiate with the European Central Bank and with Merkel some sort of growth pact. Okay, growth, but where is the money coming from the growth? You have to come from, especially Germany, German capital. And I'm not sure German capitalists they want to finance sort of a reconstruction of Europe at this moment. And that's the big if. Let's say within the next few weeks, we're going to have an idea if Hollande will be able to, because Hollande can say, look, okay, so no growth, no productive investment from where the money is. Okay, so we're not going to follow the rules of the austerity pact, and the other Club Med countries, they won't as well. So what are you going to do about it? So he has some margin of maneuver,
Well, after reading Paul Joseph Watson's articles, because I admit I didn't know a lot about Hollande. He's got him supporting the euro. He was a former aide to Francois Mitterrand, who was a Mason, and he's part of the establishment. And one of his advisors is a guy named Manuel Valls, who has publicly called for the European Commission to control the national budgets of EU member nations, which sounds like austerity to me is what that's going to bring in.
And in fact, Valls is being, yesterday they were already talking about Valls as a possible prime minister, which is not a very good idea. The other candidate for prime minister is Martine Aubry. This lady is, let's say, she's more of a true European socialist, social democrat, and she is against hardcore neoliberalism, unlike Valls. So that's another thing to watch. Who Hollande is going to choose as his prime minister is going to tell us half the story on how he's going to deal with the Germans and with the European Central Bank especially. But, if he pulls off at least some kind of clause saying, look, let's invest more, let's have a stimulus package all over Europe. And the European Central Bank could coordinate this stimulus package. In fact,
of course they can. They print it out of thin air.
Would probably suggest that. Why don't you Europeans have our stimulus package like we have in the US and like the Chinese had in China? And it worked for the Chinese as well. So, and the Germans will say, no, we cannot spend anymore. We are afraid of inflation. We cannot print money that we don't have. So this is going to be a real war.
I see Hollande as France's Le Obama. You know, the youth behind him. Oh, it's going to be great. We're all going to get free stuff. And when it comes down to it, that doesn't really happen. The only free stuff are the people who work in government and who are sucking off the system. And I don't see them doing anything for the people. That's my personal opinion. You know, you differed a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. I mean, it's interesting to see how these things happen and how people are duped. I mean, our country was duped into believing Obama was going to be real change. He's financed by Goldman Sachs. He does banker bailouts. You know, he starts more wars. You know, he's supposed to be a peace president. Now he's supposedly getting out of Afghanistan. We'll see if that really happens. We're never going to leave Iraq. That's never going to happen.
And by the way, Rob, the U.S. will never leave Afghanistan either. Huh? Don't forget that 2,000 U.S. troops will remain in Afghanistan after 2014 and keeping 3 strategic bases.
Right.
Kandahar, Shindand near the Iranian border, and Bagram, which is huge. It's enormous. You know, it's like it's bigger than JFK and O'Hare put together.
Well, one thing what we have to do, though, in Afghanistan, that's all part of the bringing heroin to the rest of the world project. That's part of our aid to the rest of the world. We all know how that works.
Junkies of the world unite.
Exactly. There it is. Le Obama. Pepe, it's been great talking with you. Thanks for staying up with us late, and we sure do appreciate it. Thanks for bringing us all the information, the behind the scenes of what's going on in Asia and all things in between. It's Pepe Escobar. Thank you very much.
Anytime, Rob. Thank you.
All right. And that's it for tonight with InfoWars Nightly News. I've been your host, Rob Dew. If you are watching this on YouTube, please consider becoming a member of PrisonPlanet.tv. It's very easy to do. We have a 15-day free trial. You can go to PrisonPlanet.tv or InfoWarsNews.com and do that. And it supports what we do. It helps bring all these guests in, all the special things that we're doing, sends reporters out in the field. We are listener supported. We are not supported by the Bilderbergs or the central banks or Ben Bernanke or any of those other people who like to suck off the blood of the working man out there. So we appreciate your support. Please consider doing that. And that's all we have for today. Great show coming up tomorrow. Wayne Madsen's going to be on talking about the Gulf and the mutant shrimp that are there. So stay tuned for that. And with that, I bid you a fond farewell.